After Governor Romney's very strong performance last week, his campaign says crowds and enthusiasm seems to be growing. In the past week alone, Governor Romney's campaign says at least 3 of its rallies have exceeded 10,000 people. So should President Obama be a bit worried about this? You're looking at a live picture, by the way. We'll go to the governor as soon as it begins in Lebanon, Ohio. But Alexis McGill Johnson is the executive director for the American Values Institute. Ford OConnell is chairman of the Civic Forum PAC and the former outreach director for John McCain for president. Good to see you both. Ford, let me start with you. So are the larger crowds that we're seeing commensurate with the enthusiastic response to Governor Romney's debate performance, which, by the way, was watched by about 70 million Americans, many of whom are voters?
Well, you know, the larger crowds are a great sign of Governor Romney's mounting momentum. Trust me, I'd be a little worried if the crowds were getting smaller. But to be perfectly honest with you, he's still trailing President Obama by about 15 to 20 electoral votes. And essentially, he's got a lot more work to do to convince Americans that he has a plan to make America recover faster than President Obama, and that his plans on balance will actually improve the lives of all Americans over the next 4 years.
Sure.
And if he can do that, President Obama is really in trouble. But right now, this whole thing could come down to Ohio.
You know, Alexis, it's been said, either Will Rogers or Oscar Wilde, I can't remember whom, but, you know, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And for many voters, that first debate was their first and maybe lasting impression. Does that make it harder for President Obama to try to regain the ground he lost?
Well, I think it might if that was the voters' first introduction to the president. And, you know, one debate is one misstep in a long 4 years of the time that the president has actually been in the public eye consistently. And
yeah,
so
but 70 million people saw it. And I mean, it was a thumping by most accounts.
Oh, without a doubt, I think that the president did not do his best during that debate, and I think he really needs to bring it on Tuesday. But I don't think that that's his first impression, and I think that his message about economic recovery for the middle class, his message about reproductive health and women is going to actually
the
push
first
it.
debate really hurt President Obama, and he's going to have to come out with his A game on Tuesday.
Right.
But Mitt Romney can't be cautious either. He has to do well in the next 2 debates. So
Ford,
I mean, we're very tight.
You're the
right
guy
now
who brought up some of the polling data and electoral votes and so on and so forth. And I was looking at 2 different sets of polls, the Rasmussen polling data as well as the Marist Wall Street Journal polling data. They say the same thing, that Romney continues to surge in key swing states. In fact, you know, there are just some of them right there. He's now taking the lead in Virginia, in Colorado, in New Hampshire, and in Florida. And he's almost dead even in Ohio, and he's really increased his lead in North Carolina. So, you know, Ford, that's the trend line that your folks are looking for, right?
That is absolutely the trend line that we're looking for, but we also recognize that, you know, we're probably going to have to win Ohio if Mitt Romney wants to win the Oval Office. There are 11 other ways to win on the electoral map without Ohio, but really right now all roads lead to Ohio. And what President Obama is doing right now, which is extremely dishonest in Ohio, is saying, hey, we rescued the auto industry. That's not true. George W. Bush rescued the auto industry.
Oh,
and what President Obama did was expand the auto bailout. And by expanding the auto bailout, he's actually hurt the long-term growth of GM and Chrysler.
GM is alive, and Ohioans know that
GM is alive, no thanks to you guys.
Okay, hang on, you guys are talking over each other and nobody can hear you. I want to tell our viewers that we are going to listen in Governor Mitt Romney's speech in Lebanon, Ohio, and we're paying attention to it because the crowd is just enormous there. Obviously, their campaign truck and or bus just pulled up, and the governor has emerged, and lots of cheers and a few hugs there. And again, we're going to take his speech as soon as it begins. But look, Alexis, in the meantime, there is another polling metric. In the 11 swing states, Romney earns 49% support to Obama's 48%, and the undecided are only 3%. And by the way, I double-checked this. Those very same swing states hold 146 electoral votes, and Obama won them by 53 to 46 4 years ago. So boy, he's behind on his numbers there on the swing states, isn't he?
Look, Greg, we know this is going to be a base election. This is really going to come down to turnout. And when we look just in the state of Ohio right now, 20% of Ohio voters have already voted through the early vote process. 2/3 of those votes have gone to President Obama. Obama has a very strong ground game. The Obama for America and the DNC have been building on this ground game for the last 4 years. And so I'm actually not concerned about the turnout when it comes to a base election.
All right,
Greg,
got to cut you guys off. Want to go live to Lebanon, Ohio. Thanks so much, Fort O'Connell, Alexis McGill Johnson.